Good morning. Today is one of those days where I need to cut the BS, right? We're in a very, very serious crossroads in the United States of America. And I know that people often use analogies to different periods of history or different parts of the world to describe the fascist, kleptocratic, authoritarian regime in which we are now captured, where we are now subjects of Donald Trump and his maniacal, mendacious, moronic madness. This is where we are. Today, I'm taking that step into troubled waters by comparing where we are now, right now in America, to where Nazi Germany was in 1933. And I'm being very specific to 1933, my friends, because it was in 1933 when the Germans opened Dachau, the very first camp. Now, they did not call it a death camp, but in short order, that's what it became. And I also want to make clear that before the so-called final solution that Hitler came up with about, I want to say, 8 years later, or, in the 1940s, where he just decided he was going to literally set up camps for the purpose of exterminating people like Auschwitz. Even before that, and even while these extermination camps existed where people were being shot or gassed to death, even while that was happening and before that was happening, the so-called concentration camps themselves were death camps. People were worked to death and diseases spread. Typhoid fever was rampant. In fact, you might remember that Anne Frank, who died shortly before Bergen-Belsen was liberated, Anne Frank died of typhus, right? Just a little before. Her death has been recalibrated. Some people said she died 2 weeks before liberation, in other words, March 31st, 1945, but now her death is put back to February. Why am I saying this? I am saying this because yesterday, the Senate of the United States of America authorized billions of dollars of funding for the so-called immigration crackdown, for the deportation effort. The total amount of money is a little over $170 billion. And to be perfectly clear, of that 170 billion, 45 billion has been dedicated to setting up new so-called detention centers. 45 billion to be spent apparently within 4 years, friends. That money is not going to sit idle, because yesterday, at the very same time that the Senate was passing this bill, which is now moved to the House, so there's still a little hope for us. That's why I'm talking about this. This bill dedicating $170 billion to this effort with $45 billion to be spent. The model is now this so-called alligator Alcatraz, which is a really flip way of describing what folks are now calling alligator Auschwitz. I wouldn't call it that. What I would call it is a concentration camp that could easily become a death camp. This is set up in the Florida Everglades. Yesterday, Donald Trump took the press on a tour of this and also held a press conference. Now, I want to let you know, I've done a lot of digging into this. The company that set up these kind of tents, this encampment, these buildings is the same company that often sets up like big festivals, big music festivals, and so on. There is infinite capacity when you have a check to write for $45 billion to make this happen across the country. And that is the plan, a system of camps. I'm just telling you what they're saying. Now, of course, they're not comparing it to Germany. Why would they? Now, you might say something happened yesterday on True Social. Folks were saying, wow, I can't believe they let the press in to these camps. And people were surmising that in Germany, when the first camp was established in Dachau in 1933, and then in the 40s when they were the extermination camps, in between that, people were saying, I doubt the press knew about this. I think they probably kept it really quiet. Well, guess again. Someone showed a clip from a local newspaper in the US saying, no, look, I found this clip showing that there was a press release about Dachau. So that got me thinking last night, friends. And I went into the New York Times archives. And what I found was chilling, because Dachau was opened was announced and opened. It was opened in April of 1933, just after Hitler's birthday, kind of like a birthday present for him. And immediately the press was let in. I have a series of articles from the New York Times archives. I'm going to show you them, the headlines, because you can get the PDFs of actually what was in the newspaper, of the announcement about Dachau opening, who was going to be there. And by July, so April through July, by July, they decided that this was going to be permanent. By July, people were trying to escape and were getting shot. This is the beginning of something that's happening here in the United States. Now, let me add that $170 billion of the Senate passed. I should say Republicans in the Senate, all but two, right? This money, of that $170 billion, I want you to know that apparently ICE used to have the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which has now become Donald Trump's secret and masked police. They used to have an annual budget of $8 billion. Now they have $30 billion. Think about it. They're going to ramp up the hiring of ICE. They're going to build these facilities, right? I'm looking at this. When I do the math, there's still another $100 billion. You guys, bottom line is, in this legislation, in this budget, Donald Trump is taking away healthcare, taking away hospitals, defunding schools, defunding public television, giving ginormous tax cuts to the rich, and creating a system of death camps. And you might say, well, they told us that they're only going to put really hardened rapists and robbers and violent criminals into those camps. And they're only going to be there a short period of time before they're flown out and deported to another country. Guys, that is such a load of horse manure. You've seen who is being rounded up on the streets: day laborers from Home Depot and elsewhere, mothers who forgot years ago to fill out some paperwork for their green card, nannies watching children in parks. And of course, now the threats are to put in these camps people who are political opponents of the president. I kid you not. So that is my intro to the show. And I know it's very heavy, but don't turn away. We have something that we can do. And I'm going to share that information with you. I'm going to share it now. And then I'm going to also share an interview with our friend Ezra Levin from Indivisible that he did last night with Jen Psaki. But for now, what I want to share with you, which is very important, is this. Write down this phone number, 202-224-3121. That's the congressional switchboard. Again, 202-224-3121. You're a member of Congress, and they're a member of Congress only. The Senate is done now. You need to let them know, whether your member of Congress is a Democrat or Republican, that you want no death camps in America, that they must oppose this bill, that you want money spent on the general welfare, not creating a system of prison camps, period, that will become deadly. Now, you might say, Jen, I don't know who my member of Congress is. No problem. When you call the switchboard, they will transfer you. You tell them where you live, you tell them your zip code, they will. Also, Deb is going to drop into the chat right now a link that is available to the Indivisible website where you can type in your address and it can give you, it can send a message to your member of Congress so they call you back. So there you go. Call your legislatures. Deb just put it in the chat. I want to also add, again, before we get heavily into this, and we'll come back to this again, here is something else you should do. There aren't enough Republican votes now to get this bill passed in the House. Do I think they're going to bow down to Donald Trump? Yes, but I don't know for sure. And so if you are from any of these states and these are your reps, I want you to call them. These are the Republicans who need to hear from us. On this slide, we've got folks from Arizona, Colorado, California, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Wisconsin. I'm going to share this later during the show. I can't say the names of all these folks, but if you are from any of those states and you heard your state's names, you might be someone who could persuade your rep not to vote for this bill. We want to fund healthcare in rural hospitals and schools. And we don't think sacrificing that. And FEMA, when there's a hurricane, there are people in Florida whose homes have been destroyed by hurricanes. There's no money for them, but there's money for the death camps. Okay, so now I want to show you this. I'm already calling these death camps because people are dying in ICE custody. And Tom Homan, his attitude, our borders are, his attitude about this is people die. People die. If you tell him that someone died in custody because of negligence, because of overcrowding, because of illness, because they weren't getting their medicine, to Tom Homan, to the Trump administration, and to the Republican Party, the answer is people die. That is the new motto of the Republican Party. People die. Billionaires deserve all the tax dollars, and they deserve to get government subsidies. They deserve to be on the dole, and the rest of us can just flip and die. I want you to hear that. Here we go.
A 75-year-old Cuban national who died in ICE custody. He had lived in the United States for 60 years. He was being held in ICE detention in Florida. Is there anything you can tell us about that? There's still not a lot of information, how he died.
I'm unaware of that. I'm not aware of that. Okay. I mean, people die in ICE custody. People die in county jails. People die in state prisons. I mean, if you look at, when I was ICE director and we drilled down that, the question should be how many lives does ICE save? Because when they go in detention, we find many with diseases and stuff that we deal with right away to prevent that. So I'm not aware of that specific case.
Oh my God. He doesn't know about a 75-year-old Cuban national who died in ICE custody, but his attitude is people die in prison, but in ICE custody. I shouldn't even call them prisons because this isn't the due process you get where you can only be locked up if you've committed a crime and there has to be evidence against you and you get a bail hearing. No, they're just rounding these people up. And his attitude is, this is chutzpah. Well, you've got to compare. Yeah, maybe some people die because they're beaten or they die of disease or overcrowding. But look, we saved someone because they didn't have medicine before. So basically, I don't even know what to say. But the Republican Party is the party of people die. I'm going to also show you, it's not just Tom Homan. It's their whole attitude. And I know that you've seen this, but let's watch Joni Ernst say people die.
People are not, well, we all are going to die. So, for heaven's sake.
That's what the Republican Party has to give you. People die, get out of my face, basically. That is it. Okay, now we're moving in from here. to what happened yesterday. And yesterday, as I mentioned, while the Senate was contemplating and ultimately gave Donald Trump this obscene budget of over $170 billion, of which $45 billion is earmarked to create these death camps, is what I'm calling them. You can call them concentration camps, but these are where people die of disease. And we know what happens when a system of camps is established. The reason why it wasn't just anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, or homophobia, or hatred of communists that was the reason why these camps they result in extermination. It was hatred. It was the plan, the so-called final solution. Here in the U.S., Donald Trump is going to have trouble with the system as it is, with deporting people, with getting flights to different countries. They will work these people to death. People will try to escape, and he's hoping that they get shot. Maybe he didn't say that, but that would happen if you tried to escape, or devoured by wild animals. This is fucking, I don't want to use the word, but this is medieval. So let's look at, I'm going to show you what it looks like inside the facility first, and then what Donald Trump had to say. I want you to notice that this was just created over, I think, 8 days or 2 weeks is what I'm hearing. This is inside of a kind of a tent. And inside are these cages where there are bunk beds. I don't see any running water inside of the cages. I don't see any toilet facilities. I don't see any way to get food. That's not built in here. How are they going to use facilities? How are they going to get the help they need? Let's look at this. That is what we're seeing, and they are ready to load it up with people. Now we have, I'm sorry that this is Katie Tour, but I want to show you what she has to say with her chipper voice about this. Let's look, because you're going to get a bigger perspective here.
While the administration keeps claiming the people, the humans they are detaining are, quote, the worst of the worst, the actual data does not support that. Only a small fraction of those arrested and detained so far are violent criminals convicted of sexual assault and homicide. Instead, according to internal ICE data obtained by Ainsley and NBC News from October 1st through May 31st, roughly 185,000 people were arrested and detained. 65,000 of them were convicted of crimes. The most common crimes, though, were not violent ones. Instead, they were immigration and traffic offenses. So this raises the question, an important question. Who exactly will Trump be keeping at Alligator Alcatraz under threat of sweltering heat, mosquitoes, pythons, and alligators?
Who will he be keeping there? Good question. We don't know, but history tells us the answer is going to be anyone and everyone to keep up the numbers. I'm showing you these pictures now, more pictures. This is Donald Trump walking through this migrant detention center, what I'm calling a death camp. You can see another angle here. And this is the press. This is the press inside of the space with Kristi Noem. And here is, they are showing a shot of an alligator. Okay, so wondering who it might be, let's take a look at who they are rounding up. Let me share this with you, and then I'll go back to the press conference. This is the brutal arrest of a U.S. citizen who just happened to be brown going to work.
A couple bruises in my body. One of them pushed me into the ground.
Andrea Velez is referring to this chaotic moment in downtown LA Tuesday morning. The 32-year-old U.S. citizen from South LA had just been dropped off for work by her family near 9th and Spring Street when ICE agents rushed her, forced her to the pavement, and put her in handcuffs.
I was just going to work. It was just a day of work, and like everything happened so fast. So yeah, and they didn't identify themselves, so I was kind of scared.
Then she was hauled away. For 24 hours, her family couldn't find her. With the help of her family, community advocates, and lawyers, she was released late Thursday.
They're alleging that Miss Velez assaulted an ICE officer. Now imagine this. You're at a scene, you're just dropped off for work, you're walking along on the curb, on the sidewalk, and a man, a grown adult, 200-pound, 6-foot man in full armor, weapons, with his face shielded, starts charging at you. And that's what she experienced. Now ask yourself, who committed the assault here?
Velez says she screamed and feared for her life when she was suddenly grabbed. She also thinks ICE was targeting other Latino and Hispanic people around her, but she didn't know it until she was questioned later.
They were just telling me that I was getting arrested for interfering and for resisting arrest.
Do you think you were interfering?
I don't think I was, and I was just resisting because I wasn't sure where I was going to end up or who was taking me.
A terrifying and violent encounter for an American citizen swept up in an ICE raid while on her way to work.
I'm like Latina, so I'm pretty sure I was probably racially profiled.
That's where we are. That's happening right now. Happening right now. And that is in Los Angeles. And she's not the only one. And let's just step back and say, even for the undocumented, we've talked about this before. It's at most a misdemeanor if you crossed the border and you're caught crossing the border. Obviously, statute of limitations at some point wear out. Now, at some point, if you're in the country, there's no evidence that you crossed illegally. You could have come here for the day and stayed. You could have overstayed a visa. You might have married a U.S. citizen and applied for a green card, right? And they are now treating these civil infractions, or at most misdemeanors, as grounds to kidnap people off the street, to raid farms and factories, and put people in what will be the equivalent of death camps. This is unacceptable. Now let's move in to Donald Trump talking about how this is just the beginning. Remember, they're giving him over $170 billion for this effort, $45 billion of which to build these camps. They don't cost, I remember what the number was. I was looking at someone saying, oh my gosh, this camp they built in Florida, I think they were shocked that it was like, was it 400 million, or I don't know what the number was. It was a huge number, but it didn't even make a dent in this $45 billion budget they are giving. The amount of money that is being dedicated to this is what the full military force, the armed forces in many countries in the world spend. I don't think you understand the magnitude. And when a system is built, people just get put through the system. And what happens if you object? They will put you through it too, is the fear down the road. Of course, we're not there yet. They're just opening it. And I'm not fear-mongering. I'm telling you what history has shown. So let's listen to Donald Trump, in his own words, talk about his new plan.
Bill passing, and we look forward to the success of this facility here. How many more facilities like this do you feel that the country needs in order to enact your agenda of mass deportations?
Well, I think we'd like to see them in many states, really, many states. This one, I know Ron's doing a second one, at least a second one, and probably a couple of more. And, at some point, they might morph into a system where you're going to keep it for a long time. It's not that far away from jails that take years to build, and money is spent and wasted. And, like the railway that they have in California that costs like 40 times more than it was supposed to cost. The same things happens with prisons. You look at this in a short period of time, Ron, James, and some of the people.
He just told you, if he's going to be spending all this money on these places that are supposed to be just achieving this agenda of mass deportation, where people are supposed to be just coming through and leaving. Nah, he wants to keep it there. Do you think he and his family and his friends are invested in these businesses? Of course. It will be very hard to stop, let alone shut this down once it's in place. Now, there's more. Donald Trump is also talking about denaturalizing, taking the citizenship away from the Democratic candidate for mayor, Zohran Mamdani, and deporting him. This would be a place for someone like him. Let me play you that.
Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech.
I'm not sure who these members of the press are, but Mamdani is not a communist. He's a socialist, but you be you, press.
Each said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. And by the way, they get about 3 times what you get, Ron. If you look at the per capita, Florida gets 1/3 of what New York gets in terms of the numbers. Why don't you give us those numbers?
Yeah, well,
because that's what we should send him.
Yeah, well, like sometimes people say Florida gets more because they count Social Security recipients, but that's not money to the state. Those are seniors that live here. If they moved to North Carolina, you could count it there. So it has no interaction with the state government. They get more on the.
No. When a senior gets Social Security money, it does interact with the state. They buy groceries. They hire people to come clean their home. They pay for medicine. All of this stimulates the local economy. DeSantis, don't play us for idiots. Let me continue.
City and state governments than we get.
Right, substantially. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, we're going to look at everything, and ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right now, he's a communist. That's
Guys, this is straight out of the fascist playbook to call people communists. It's like calling them back then gay. Because, and I'm going to get to this in a moment, but labeling the camp, DACA, these camps were first for gay men and for communists, or both, right? I mean, because it was unlawful to be a practicing homosexual in Germany in 1933. And the Communist Party was banned. So you could just be accused of being a communist or being gay and put in DACA. I'm just saying the parallels here are powerful, extremely powerful. And this silence from the Democratic Party right now about what's in this bill, I have not heard anything from Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries about the $175 billion effort, and of which $45 billion is to build these camps. I think the Democrats are trying to just focus on how this bill takes away people's Medicaid and will hurt hospitals. But that's a problem for 2 reasons. One, most people who are on Medicaid don't even know they're on Medicaid, because if you look at the name of the Medicaid plan state by state, very rarely, I think only in a few states is the word Medicaid there. It might be called, I'm going to give you the list of it. I've seen this. I'm going to share it with you later, but you might not know you're on it, first of all. And second of all, this isn't about just people not having healthcare or hospitals and billionaires getting their yachts and their tax breaks. We are talking about a system of death camps on the verge of being built. And I think maybe the Democrats are afraid of saying that because they don't want to touch the immigration issue. Big mistake. Not because of re-election, big mistake because of humanity. Wake up and speak. We need this now more than ever. Now there's more, right? He says there are going to be many more of these camps. He threatens to try to deport or denaturalize Mamdani. And let's listen to This is the third time I've heard Donald Trump publicly say, you know what? I think we should go for the homegrown people born in America as well. He wants to deport them. He wants to send them to these kinds of camps. I'm going to play that for you right now.
You know, a little controversial, but I couldn't care less. We have a lot of bad criminals that came into this country, and they came in stupidly. It was an unforced error. It was an incompetent president that allowed it to happen. It was an auto pen maybe that allowed it to happen, and it did happen. But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time. People that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them. People that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here too. You want to know the truth. So maybe that'll be the next job that we'll work on together. But I think getting them out, you know, we forget about them. We had some bad accidents in New York.
Guys, he is serious. Take him seriously and literally. I'm just going to say this. So many of us said, oh my God, if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed, well, back up. Many of us said, if Donald Trump gets in office, he's going to be able to control and replace the Supreme Court. We said Roe versus Wade will be overturned. People said, you're hysterical. We could go back and look at the article. Stop being that way. Over and over again, almost everything we have said he would do, he has done, if he can do it. Because why? He signaled he would. Things that he does that are sadistic, either one, sadistic, to get people to target others for their bloodlust and sadism and hatred, right? Anything that furthers the white nationalist agenda, he's for that. And anything that makes money for people who support him, like billionaires and corporations, he's for that. And that is all he has accomplished thus far. And the thing is, we knew back then, and also, of course, overturning Roe versus Wade. We knew he would do that because he also said he thought women should be criminalized for having abortions. We saw him say that. Look at who his base is and what they want. Look at who, follow the money, and you will see. So I am not being dramatic when I say we have to stop this bill. And when and if the House Republicans fall in line, if this budget bill goes through, Donald Trump will have the money he needs to build these camps. I don't know what the next step is beyond hoping to God we have real elections for the midterms, because he's already talking about redoing the census early. We're not ready for another census, but he wants to redo it so he can somehow change how elections are done. Look, this is dire. There's still hope, but I don't want us to pretend this is anything other than what it is. Now, I've got more evidence right from Donald Trump about what's going on here. Let's talk about prosecuting the press. We've talked about this before, but when he set up these camps, you wonder what he's going to do with them. Here we go.
Secretary, CNN yesterday pushed an app that lets you track where ICE agents are. Tom Homan was saying that perhaps CNN should be prosecuted for that. That's obstruction of law enforcement. Your response?
Yeah, we're working with the Department of Justice to see if we can prosecute them for that, because what they're doing is actively encouraging people to avoid law enforcement activities, operations, and we're going to actually go after them and prosecute them with the partnership of PAM if we can, because what they're doing, we believe, is illegal.
It's not illegal. Okay, so CNN shared online the fact, or on TV, this fact there's this app called Ice Block. And apparently it's an app you can download to warn people that ICE is about to have a raid, right? And I'm going to show you, apparently Ice Block has climbed to the top of the charts. I'm going to share this with you so you can see. I'm not afraid of these folks yet. Okay, share screen. Okay, so this is some gadget website, and these are free apps. And there's number one is Ice Block that people are downloading. 2 is Threads, and 3 is WhatsApp. And so what is happening, this is, Donald Trump is really angry. This happened yesterday. It said Trump administration cracked down on immigration. When the app went live, there were about 20,000 users, most of whom lived in Los Angeles, where ICE had been raiding neighborhoods. And what it does is it lets users pin ICE agents' locations on the map, and they can warn people, kind of like when you're driving. Have you ever used any of those driving apps like Waze, W-A-Z-E, and you can find out if there's something on the road? There could be something like someone parked at the side of the road, or some debris on the road, or a speed trap, or what have you. It's like that, except with ICE. And so she is claiming, Kristi Noem is claiming that this is endangering the lives of officers. Okay. You're allowed to communicate with people. That it's still, so far as I know, legal to tell people. And in the fact that the ICE agents are masked and don't identify themselves, I mean, you've got to warn people, because these could just be kidnappers, right? We are now at the point where Bill Kristol, the longtime conservative who has moved more to the center, is announcing or endorsing the complete abolition of ICE. And I think he is right. The ethos and the mission right now of ICE has now creeped into this kind of secret lawless police. So, okay, that's one thing. I want to tell you one last video of Donald Trump here about his end game. This is again him. This is him, I think, at the outside his plane after the presser.
Bill called Make American Elections Great Again. I love it. Forcing the U.S. Census Bureau to redo the census to actually get an account of how many Americans with proof of citizenship are in our area, in our country, redistricting some of the House districts. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll speak for both of us. We love it. Okay, you're going to like this one. I know all about it. We want to bring our elections back. The election in 2020 was rigged, millions and millions of votes. It had to do with COVID and a lot of things, but it really had to do with the crooked people. The Democrats are very good at cheating on elections.
Okay, I can't keep playing him. Why every day isn't it called out that he is lying about the 2020 election? This lie about the election, the big lie, as well as his pardoning of all the violent criminals who attacked the U.S. Capitol. And just the other day, he appointed someone who to a high position. I think it was someone who was in the FBI at January 6th. Hold on, let me look at this. And he just gave him a really serious. Okay, here we go. A former FBI agent that Donald Trump pardoned is now serving in the Justice Department. And he is now part of the so-called weaponization working group. And so his name was Jared Wise, and he is now a counselor to Ed Martin. And I just want to let you know that this isn't normal. And it's not being talked about. And why? Look at the threats they're making to CNN when CNN simply reports on an app. Also, last night, Paramount, I think, just settled. I think they're I think they're somehow connected to CBS, right? They just settled for like $16 million because of the 60 Minutes interview. This extortion and shakedown is going to distort how we see the news, right? This is a fact. Okay, guys. So what is the hope here? I got some hope, and then I've got some other news for you. I want to share with you. I've got to do this as a share because I wasn't able to actually download this video. This is Ezra Levin speaking with Jen Psaki, and this is going to give us hope and light a fire under us, I hope, as well. Okay, so I'm taking you to my blue sky, and I'm going to play this and blow it up.
For people who are sitting at home right now, they're hearing that there are votes that could start tomorrow. It's 9:29. What should they be doing?
they should get in touch with their member of Congress, Jen. They need to get in touch with their member of Congress. I think for a lot of folks, they might think, oh, I'm not a policy expert. I'm not a Medicaid expert.
I need to make clear, you guys, I'm just starting over for you. This was from last night. Okay, so today is the day when it's all starting. Here we go.
What, for people who are sitting at home right now, they're hearing that there are votes that could start tomorrow. It's 9:29. What should they be doing?
They should get in touch with their member of Congress, Jen. They need to get in touch with their member of Congress. I think for a lot of folks, they might think, oh, I'm not a policy expert. I'm not a Medicaid expert. I'm not a tax expert. They don't want to hear from me. No, this is the time. If you've got a Democratic member of the House, give them a call, thank them for fighting back, ask them to fight back as hard as they can. If you've got a Republican, lucky you in this moment. Your Republican representative could be the deciding vote. As we heard from Maxwell Frost, he's got 20. We've got about 26 Republican targets. We need 4 of them. We just need 4. And this is not a done deal. So I would highly, highly encourage folks, if you're doom scrolling, stop doom scrolling. Don't sign an online petition. Don't sign up for a newsletter. Spend tomorrow to call a member of Congress and let them know that you're watching and you would like them to vote in their interests.
I love the specificity of that direction. Like, don't sign up for text messages. We'll tell you what's happening.
Okay, so here we go. I'm sharing with you this list. This is from 5051. And now I'm telling you if you need to look right now at your phone, do a screen capture or look for your rep's name. It is critical if you are in their district to call them. Arizona, Juan Ciscomani. I can't read everyone's name, but please, my friends, look at this. Look at this. And I will provide after the show, if you're watching after the show, in the comments below, a link to this. Regardless of whether we do just need 4 of them, as Ezra Klein said. I'm sorry, Ezra Levin said. Here's the problem. Anyone, right now it's good that there's 26, not sure, but it's going to get down to a few. And those folks may decide to sell out the entire country to get a few goodies for their own state. Kind of like Lisa Murkowski did yesterday. People are saying that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski have a special little, deal where one of them will take the heat and vote for a really bad bill and the other one won't. And they just take turns so they don't piss off their constituents. Well, yesterday, Lisa Murkowski had an opportunity, if she really cared, to do the right thing, right? How often in life would you have a moment to like go back in time, shut down the death camps before they continued? How often do people have that? But that is not at all what she did. Now I've got this. Look at this interview with Murkowski when she supported this bill that is going to hurt so many Americans, hundreds of millions. But for people in her state, less than 1 million people, here's what she did. She sold us out.
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
My question was easy. Senator, we've got the...
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that.
You know, she could have just voted against it, and then no one would have been disadvantaged. I mean, seriously, Murkowski. It's really astonishing, the kind of BS that they are spewing, and they think that yeah, okay. So here we go. We're going to now get to the evidence part, and this is what I want to share. I'm going to share something with you, and then I'm going to share those New York Times articles, because I think we need to face the history. Okay. I'm sharing with you something called the Holocaust website called the Holocaust Encyclopedia. And this is confirming that in March, that was March of 1933, just before Hitler's birthday, the first prisoners arrived at this camp in Dachau, which is about 10 miles northwest of Munich, which is in southern Germany. And just so you can see, it says, during the first year, the camp had a capacity of 5,000 prisoners, right? Initially, these, they called them internees, were primarily German communists, social democrats, trade unionists, and other political opponents of the Nazi regime. Over time, other groups were also interned at Dachau, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, Roma, which is another word for gypsies, gay men, as well as asocials and repeat criminal offenders. During the early years, relatively few Jews were interned in Dachau, and then usually because they belonged to one of the above groups or had completed prison sentences that had been convicted for violating the Nuremberg laws of 1935. So I just want to show you, you can see what these prisoners look like. Their heads are shaved, right? And then things began to change, right? And by October, there was a whole system of brutal punishment for the slightest offenses. And we go on and on, right? It gets to the construction is completed in 1938, and it remained unchanged until liberation. It operated the entire time. Okay, what about Auschwitz? Auschwitz-Birkenau wasn't established until 1940 in Poland, but of course it was this next phase. I don't want to get to the next phase. Now, I want to share with you then what it looked like when the press in April through July of 1933 visited Dachau, similar to our pandering press visiting the first of our dangerous death camps, the system that Donald Trump wants to build with at least $45 billion. And that's only the budget for building and operating these camps. That doesn't include the full $170 billion for the whole so-called mass deportation effort. Okay, so here we go. I am going to, okay, I'm going to share this with you. Sorry, I think I can do this. Oh man. Okay, I was trying to do that, but I think I saved these. Oh, I know how I can do it. I think I can. I have screenshots, but hold on. Let me just pull up the archives real quick because it decided not to let me share that. And I can pull all of this up for you. You have to be, I think, 1 second, you guys. And I'm getting specific dates for, I'm doing all of 1933 with the word Dachau. And you will be able to follow what I am doing. Beautiful. Now I'm sharing with you. Sorry, I thought I was all set, but it didn't want that. Okay. Okay, we got it. So I did a search. You can see this. I think here you can see the word Dachau. And you can also see, okay, sorry guys, you can also see, in addition to that I've searched for January 1st, 1933 through December 31st, 1933. And these aren't organized in order. You can see on the left, this one that says July 27th. This one says April 5th. So I'm starting with the April 5th because this is the first one. And this is from April 5th, 1933. And let's open it up. And I want to, what I can do is show it on the Times machine. It was on page 10. And I can now go to the PDF. You see this process? Are you still with me? I think, oops, oh, you aren't, but I am going to share this tab. Okay, now you can see I got to the PDF of it. Great. This is from April 4th, 1933. This is it says wireless to the New York Times. So this was sent over the wires from a reporter. Nazis to hold 5,000 and camp at Dachau. 300 communist prisoners are preparing buildings of old munitions plant. Secrecy shrouds work. Interned men have no complaint of treatment. Those who, quote unquote, behave to be freed after a month. Guys, people weren't freed after a month. Okay, so it says the writer has just visited Dachau, the site of the concentration camp for those who have incurred the displeasure of the present rulers of Germany, but have committed no offense for which they could be tried. Dachau is a market town a half hour from Munich. Some distance beyond it lie the discussed Dachau munition works, where 5,000 political prisoners are to be confined. Your correspondent took a 2-hour walk around the high stone wall surrounded by barbed wire. 200 to 300 prisoners, mostly communist working men at present, are cleaning up the debris, making the deserted building ready for the thousands who are to be concentrated here. Except for a swastika flag over the main entrance and a couple of Nazi sentries, the plant presents the same deserted appearance it has since the war. They talk about the secrecy. Okay, so the Nazi authorities will fix no limit for the detention of the prisoners. Those who behave will, from the Nazi standpoint, be released on probation after a month. Others will be kept as compulsory labor. Okay, so that was the first of those. Now, I want to share another with you. Okay, so let's go back as this develops. I've only got 4 articles for you, and I think it is chilling. Okay, so let's look here. The next one, so that was April 5th. Okay, now April 23rd. So first they're just saying if you behave, it will be fine for you. Now I'm going to pull up this next article. You can see I've got the full article. I'm going to the PDF. Okay, you should be able to now see what I have done. Now I am here. Okay, so this is just a few weeks later, April 22nd. Nazis shoot down fleeing prisoners. 3 Reds, right, communists, are slain trying to escape from Dachau internment camp. Martial law prevails. High voltage wiring surrounds site. Life of men described by first reporter allowed in. So the reporter we heard about before was on the outskirts. Now we have a reporter who's come in. As the only member of the press yet allowed to do so, a New York Times correspondent has visited the huge Nazi internment camp at Dachau near Munich, where 5,000 political prisoners will eventually be detained. Special interest was lent to the visit as it coincided with Chancellor Adolf Hitler's birthday, when, as part of the process of conversion, okay, so that was, I think Hitler's birthday is April 20th, so they're reporting this on the 22nd. When, as part of the process of conversion from communism to Hitlerism, there were special parades and privileges for the prisoners. The writer talked to a prisoner. One good-looking youth, asked by the writer whether he had any complaints, said, "None about the treatment, only I have no idea why I am here. I never took part in politics, and I'm not connected with communism. I once belonged to a socialist student fraternity, but that was all." And then the commandant said, "You all say you did nothing." The commandant smiled. "If it is true, you will be released when there is time to examine your case thoroughly." Life at Dachau seems halfway between that of a severely disciplined regiment and that of a hard labor prison. Okay, so I'm stopping sharing that. This is just a few weeks after it opened. Now let's get to July. Okay, so I'm going back to the page that we were looking at. Here's my New York Times archive search. So, right, that was April 5th. Then we got to April 23rd. I want you to see some of these other headlines before we jump in. By July 27th, Nazi prison camps to be permanent. Building going on at Dachau to convert institution from a revolutionary makeshift. Hold on, I will get to that. And the other one I want to share with you, a German prisoner is slain. Yet another person shot. This is December. Red flees Nazi camp. This is August. And there's a reward. By December, 2,000 slain under Nazis. Anti-Nazi group grows in Bavaria. In May, we have this mentioned more and more. Okay, so let's look in July. Before we get to the permanency of this camp, I want to share with you on the Times machine this article. This is now another visit by a Times reporter. Remember, he visited April 22nd. Now this reporter is visiting in July. Times writer visits Reich prison camp, taking through the entire place at Dachau in Bavaria, except possibly disciplinary cells. 2,000 inmates gloomy. Gloomy, you say? Incautious word has landed many there. Machine guns and rifles bar escape. And then it's just unbelievable what's going on, what they're talking about, why people are there. Let me just read this to you. They were all the Bavarians, this is Bavaria, obviously a part of Germany, noted for their racy unreservedness of speech, pray these days with a mock drollery designed to beguile genuine apprehension. Please, Lord, make me dumb so I won't to Dachau come. For on the edge of Dachau is the big Bavarian concentration camp for political prisoners. Many a man has landed there because of an incautious word or too much confidence in supposed comrades or friends. The Nazi secret state police. Secret state police. We have that too. Like the Cheka or Russia has agents everywhere, and any criticism of the new regime and even lack of proper enthusiasm for it are punished as sabotage of this Nazi upbuilding program. Oh, here's the good news. Good work is rewarded by an additional allotment of bread. Okay, I think you get the idea here. I want to do our last one, however, about when they decide to make the camp permanent. So let me pull that up on my Times machine. This is July 27th, 1933. And I want to pull it up in the PDF for you before I bring it up. Okay. This is history on the fly. I don't think people are really, oh, here we go. I think I can do this. I think I can. I thought I did it. Okay, sorry. Oh, I was able to do it this way, but it's not big enough. So let me remove that and go back to my share screen. Here we go. Okay, here is this screen. And here we go. Nazi prison camps to be permanent. Did you see this? Sorry, I thought I had this. Okay, 1 second, you guys. I'm looking at something. Here we go. Nazi prison camps to be permanent. Building going on at Dachau to convert institution from a revolutionary makeshift. This is our special correspondent from the New York Times. Again, this is July of 1933. The educational concentration camps of Nazi Germany apparently are designed to become permanent institutions designed to crush in the bud any opposition and teach the misguided the only true national religion. And, you know, a prisoner said, no, I haven't any complaints. Okay, guys. What do I have to say to you? I'm worried. I don't see how this gets better. I'm confused by the lack of concern for where this is. But where I get you is here. I need you to call these reps. First of all, 202-224-3121. That is a number to call, and they will get you your rep. It is so important to call, even if it's a Democrat who is your member of Congress. They need to know that you not, because this isn't critical, you guys. It's not just about cuts to Medicaid. It's not just about extending ginormous tax cuts to the super wealthy. It's also about a budget to build a system of concentration and death camps in America for political opponents and for immigrants and for whoever they want to round up. Please make these phone calls. Now, the other thing to say to you, because I think I mentioned this, people don't fully know that they are on Medicaid, right? Because that is not a word that is always used. And so I want to share with you, just so you know, you may not know this. I'm going to share this screen right now. And I will also be sharing this later in the chat. So this is someone named Eintropy. The problem is that Medicaid mostly isn't called Medicaid. So the disadvantaged people using it have no clue what the fuss is about. So in Arkansas, it's called Denali Care. Alabama, Care. Arizona, Health Cost. Arkansas, they call it Health Care. California calls it Medi-Cal. Colorado, Health First Colorado. Connecticut, Husky Health. If you're in DC, you might have Healthy Families. Delaware, Diamond State Health Plan. In Florida, it's called the statewide Medicaid Managed Care Plan. Georgia calls it Georgia Medicaid. Hawaii calls it MedQuest. Idaho, they have the name Idaho Medicaid, but Illinois calls it the Medical Assistance Program. Over in Indiana, Hoosier Health Wise. Iowa, Iowa Health Link. Kansas calls it CanCare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal Assistance Program. Kentucky, Kentucky Medicaid, but Louisiana, Healthy Louisiana, and on and on and on. In Washington State, you have Apple Health. My goodness, if you're in North Carolina, the Division of Health Benefits. In Massachusetts, it's called Mass Health. I swear to you, until now, I didn't realize Mass Health was Medicaid. I just thought it was what you got if you had to buy in to healthcare under the Affordable Care Act. I had no idea that was the same thing as Medicaid. And the effort, I think, to take the stigma away from words like Medicaid, or maybe just to brand it state by state, these programs are going to be taken away, or hoops and paperwork created for people to make it more difficult to access their health care. That's how this bill works. And yet so few people know that they are a beneficiary or dependent on Medicaid. I wish the powers that be were better at communicating. So again, I beg of you, please call your reps. Now I have one more thing. And there's not going to be a crazy town today. This is too serious. I'm not dancing today. But one last thing before we go. Donald Trump has been attacking Zohran Mamdani, and here is what he had to say in response as his official response. So here he says, my statement on Donald Trump's threat to deport me and his praise for Eric Adams, who the president, quote unquote, helped out of legal accountability. The president of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I have broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you. We will not accept this intimidation. That Trump included praise for Eric Adams in his authoritarian threats is unsurprising, but highlights the urgency of bringing an end to this mayor's time in City Hall. At the very moment when MAGA Republicans are attempting to destroy the social safety net, kick millions of New Yorkers off of health care, and enrich their billionaire donors at the expense of working families, it is a scandal that Eric Adams echoes this president's division, distraction, and hate. Voters will resoundingly reject it in November. Remember, the mayor's election is now 2025, the off year. So we're going to call on members of Congress. Hopefully that works. I think the Republicans will fall in line, but what do I know? There is going to be nothing more important than making those calls and staying laser focused on slowing down and stopping the building of these detention death camps. It is gruesome, and we've got to flip the House and Senate in 2026. Now, you may say, will we even have elections? We will come out and vote. And this should also, one last thing, be a reminder to the cowards in the House. Specifically, I'm thinking of Alyssa Slotkin, in the Senate. One of my senators from Michigan, who when asked about Mamdani's campaign says, I don't comment. I'm in Michigan, that's New York. Everyone should be standing up and taking his side because he is a voice that turned out a record number of young people who don't normally vote. We don't win. We don't stop Donald Trump's fascist death machine and looting of America with the same old centrist candidates. The candidates who rise up from where they do should be supported. If these Democrats who I support believe that every area might have a different voting base, then they should rally behind Mamdani and say he is speaking to the people of New York. Go democracy. Let's hope that works. And in the meantime, I am going to see you tomorrow. There won't be a show on the 4th of July, so we will pre-celebrate or pre-focus on what it means to be an American tomorrow. Thank you and have a beautiful day in spite of this. And again, get out there and call your member of Congress now. It's important for all of us to do that.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Where how come everyone? Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.